Okay, get this. We're going to dive into a letter supposedly written by Pontius Pilate himself to Emperor Tiberius.
Wow.
And it's a wild one.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about descriptions of Jesus, the miracles, the trial, even the resurrection.
You know what's so fascinating about this is we don't really have physical descriptions of people from this time period.
Yeah.
At least not outside of biblical texts. So
Right.
to have something that purports to be from Pilate himself,
Yeah.
it's like this missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, it's like the only account of what Jesus really looked like outside of the Bible.
Right.
But
Exactly.
we have to be careful here, right?
Yeah.
The letter is presented as a historical artifact,
Right.
but its authenticity is a whole other debate.
Yeah, it's a challenge to be critical thinkers.
Right.
You know, we have to look at the content, the historical context, and ask ourselves, okay, why would someone create this?
All right, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
This deep dive starts with maybe the most fascinating part. Pilate's description of Jesus.
Right.
He calls him a man of stature, somewhat tall and comely, with a very reverent countenance. Come on.
Right.
Pilate's a busy guy.
Yeah.
Was he really taking notes on Jesus's cheekbones?
Yeah. It does seem a little more detailed than your average Roman report.
Right.
I mean, it makes you wonder, did Jesus really stand out that much? Or, was this embellished over time to make him appear more divine? I mean, think about it, how stories change as they're passed down.
So are you saying that maybe early Christians wanted to create a specific image
It's possible.
of Jesus and they just...
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
But let's not jump to conclusions yet.
Okay.
Even if the details are exaggerated, the fact that Pilate felt the need to describe his appearance at all tells us something. Clearly, he felt that Jesus was noteworthy.
Yeah.
Someone worth mentioning to the emperor.
That's a good point. It's like if you're writing to your boss, you're not going to waste time describing someone.
Right.
Unless they were important.
Exactly.
Okay, so what else does Pilate say about Jesus' appearance?
Well...
He gets super specific.
Yeah.
He says chestnut-colored hair, slightly curled,
Okay.
thick but modest beard.
Right.
He even mentions a lovely complexion with a hint of red.
Wow.
And gray, clear, piercing eyes.
Oh.
I'm picturing a Renaissance painting.
Yeah.
Not a...
Not a Roman governor's memo.
Yeah.
You have to remember, we're talking about a society where physical appearance was often associated with character.
Okay.
So a reverent countenance
and
piercing eyes, might have been meant to convey authority, wisdom. These descriptions could be a way of subtly reinforcing the idea of Jesus as a powerful figure, even in a Roman context.
So it's not just about what Jesus looked like.
Right.
It's about what those looks might have meant to people at the time. So was Pilate trying to subtly convince Tiberius that Jesus was a threat? Like, hey, Emperor, this guy looks and acts like a leader. Maybe we should keep an eye on him.
It's an interesting theory.
Right.
And it leads us perfectly into the next part of the letter.
Okay.
The miracles. Pilate recounts stories of Jesus raising the dead and healing the sick.
Okay.
These weren't just parlor tricks.
Right.
These were claims that would have turned heads, both in a good and a bad way.
So miracles were basically the viral videos of the ancient world.
Right.
Everyone's talking about them. Not everyone believes them.
Exactly.
But for Pilate, a Roman governor, to write about them to the emperor, that's a big deal.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Roman officials weren't exactly known for being superstitious.
Right.
So if Pilate felt these events were worth reporting, it means that he saw something significant in them.
Yeah.
Something potentially disruptive.
Right.
Maybe even threatening.
Okay, so we've got this powerful Roman governor describing Jesus' striking appearance and these maybe miraculous acts.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Right.
Well, things take a dramatic turn as the letter dives into the trial of Jesus and Pilate's own inner turmoil.
Interesting.
It's almost like he's wrestling with his conscience.
Yeah.
That
inner conflict is really key to understanding this whole situation. Because we have to remember that Pilate was caught in this complex political web.
Yeah.
He had to balance maintaining Roman control with the demands of the Jewish leaders who wanted Jesus gone.
Right.
So imagine that pressure.
So it's like a politician trying to figure out if they should side with a popular but controversial figure.
Right.
You know, there are risks, but there are also potential benefits.
Exactly.
But in Pilate's case, it was a decision that could literally spark a rebellion.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really interesting, because this isn't just a story about one man's faith. It's about the clash between Roman power and this rising religious movement.
So how did Pilate handle that pressure?
Well,
I mean, he was caught between a rock and a hard place.
in the letter,
Yeah.
he recounts a conversation he had with Jesus, quoting him as saying, "I am the truth and the life. I am the good shepherd."
Wow.
Now, whether those were Jesus's exact words or not,
Right.
they really capture the essence of his message.
And that message, combined with everything else Pilate had seen, must have really shaken him.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like he was witnessing something that challenged his entire worldview.
He describes these intense, almost apocalyptic events after the crucifixion.
Okay.
A darkened sun, the dead rising,
Wow.
an earthquake that shook the city.
What do you make of that?
Were these real events, metaphors, or something else entirely?
I can't even imagine what it would have been like to be there.
Right.
And it clearly affected Pilate deeply.
It seems so...
He writes about washing his hands of the whole affair,
Uh-huh.
claiming that he saw Jesus as a just person.
Right.
Was that just a way to clear his conscience, or did he truly believe Jesus was innocent?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it leads us to the heart of the debate about this letter's authenticity.
Okay.
Was Pilate trying to distance himself from a decision that he regretted? Was he trying to convince Tiberius that he made the right call? Or was this whole letter fabricated later on to make Pilate seem less responsible?
Wow, this just got a whole lot more complicated.
It did.
We're talking about guilt, politics, and the birth of religion.
Yeah.
It's like a historical thriller.
And we're just getting started.
Oh boy.
Stay with us as we continue to unpack this fascinating letter
Okay.
and explore what it reveals about the world of Jesus, Pontius Pilate, and the early days of Christianity. Before we, really dig into whether this letter is the real deal, I think it's important to understand the political situation that Pilate was dealing with.
Right.
You know, imagine governing a province with limited resources, whispers of rebellion everywhere, and a population that's deeply divided by religion and politics.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Pilate's reality.
He sounds more like a stressed out middle manager than like a powerful Roman governor.
Well, it was a tough job.
Uh-huh.
But, interacting with someone like Jesus wasn't just another Tuesday for him.
Okay.
Remember, the Jewish leaders accused Jesus of claiming to be the king of the Jews.
Yeah.
And for a Roman governor who's worried about keeping the peace, that's not just a theological debate. That's a potential powder keg. Even if Pilate thought that Jesus was harmless, ignoring that claim could have made him look weak, or even worse, like he was supporting a rebel.
He's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't.
Exactly.
So he's got these Jewish leaders pushing for Jesus' death. But he might actually believe that Jesus is innocent.
Right.
Plus he's got these maybe real miracles making him question everything.
Exactly.
It's no wonder he's washing his hands.
Right. And then you have these supernatural events that are described after the crucifixion.
Yeah.
The darkened sun.
Yeah.
The rising dead.
Right.
The earthquake.
I mean, those are details that are pretty hard to ignore.
They're pretty hard to ignore even for a Roman skeptic.
Yeah. Do you think those events actually swayed Pilate's final decision? I mean, even if you're trying to be rational, wouldn't seeing something like that make you question everything?
Well, we can't get inside Pilate's head.
Yeah.
But we can see that these events clearly impacted him. I mean, he describes them with a sense of awe and fear.
Right.
Almost like he's watching the world come undone.
Right.
So, it makes you wonder if he started to believe even just a little bit.
And then there's the fact that he calls Jesus a just person after he washes his hands of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any sincerity there, or is that just like political maneuvering?
Well,
like he's saying, hey, Tiberius, it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
This guy was special. Even I could see that.
It's definitely possible.
Right.
I mean, remember, this isn't just a personal diary entry.
Yeah.
This is a letter to the most powerful man in the world.
Yeah.
The man who decides Pilate's future.
Right.
So it's smart to consider that there might be a bit of political strategy mixed in with the guilt.
Okay, so we've got drama miracles, political scheming, and maybe even some genuine soul searching.
Right.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But the big question that's hanging over all of this is the letter even real?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
How can we tell if this is actually the words of Pontius Pilate
Right.
or a clever fake?
Well, that's where the real detective work begins.
Okay.
Historians look for clues like the letter's history, what we call the chain of custody. Okay.
Where was it found?
Yeah.
Who had it before? Has it been changed or translated over time?
Right.
These details can help us figure out if we're dealing with the real deal.
So it's like a historical CSI episode.
Exactly.
We're looking for fingerprints and DNA, but instead of a crime scene, it's this ancient letter.
Right. But even with a perfect chain of custody, there's still more to consider.
Right.
You know, the language, the writing style.
Yeah.
All of it has to match up with what we know about the time period and the people involved.
So we're basically trying to put together this giant historical jigsaw puzzle.
That's a great way to think about it.
Looking at each piece, seeing if it fits.
Yeah.
Making sure it belongs to the same picture.
And like any good puzzle.
Yeah.
There might be pieces missing or pieces that just don't seem to fit.
Right.
Sometimes we might even find a piece that seems to belong to a whole different puzzle altogether.
It makes you wonder if this letter is a fake.
Who went through the trouble of making it and why?
Right.
What would they have to gain? Now
that is a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And it leads us to one of the most intriguing parts of historical analysis.
Okay, so we're back and I'm still trying to wrap my head around all this.
Yeah.
We've got this letter, maybe from Pilate, maybe not.
Right.
Describing Jesus, miracles, political drama, the whole 9 yards.
It's a lot.
But what does it all mean?
Right.
Why are we even talking about this letter centuries later?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there are no easy answers.
Right.
But, you know, even if it's a fake, this letter gives us something incredibly valuable.
Okay, what's that?
It gives us a window into how people thought about Jesus in the years after his death.
So, like, even if Pilate didn't actually write this, the fact that someone did tells us how this story was evolving.
Exactly.
Like how rumors change as they're passed from person to person.
Exactly. Think about it. We don't have videos or photos of Jesus.
Right.
All we have are these written accounts, stories people told each other, and artwork.
Yeah.
And each of those things shapes how we understand who Jesus was.
Right.
And this letter is just another piece of that puzzle.
It's almost like we're looking at an early version of fan fiction.
That's a good way to put it.
Someone took the basic story of Jesus and added their own spin.
Right.
Their own interpretation.
Right.
Maybe they were trying to make him seem more powerful, more divine.
That's one possibility.
Yeah.
You know, notice how Pilate emphasizes the miracles and how special Jesus seemed. Those are themes that would appeal to early Christians who are trying to spread their message.
Right. It's like early marketing for a brand new religion.
Exactly.
So this letter, real or not,
Yeah.
shows us what resonated with people back then.
It does.
It's like a time capsule of what early Christians thought was important about Jesus.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah.
Even if it's not historically accurate, it's culturally significant.
Okay.
It's a snapshot of how the story of Jesus was evolving and being used to build this new belief system.
Okay, that makes sense. But if this letter is a forgery, why would someone create it in the first place?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're getting rich off ancient fan fiction.
Right. Imagine you're a believer in those early days of Christianity.
Yeah.
And you're trying to convince people that Jesus was the real deal, that he was the Son of God. What better way to do that than to produce a letter from a Roman official? Someone who witnessed the events firsthand.
Like saying, hey, even Pontius Pilate, the guy who sentenced Jesus to death, thought he was special.
Exactly. See, I told you. And there's another possibility, too.
Right.
Maybe this letter wasn't created by a single person. Maybe it evolved over time.
Okay.
Maybe it started as a simple account, and then details were added or changed as it was copied and passed along.
So it's not necessarily a deliberate lie.
Right.
It's more like the story changing and morphing as people retell it.
Exactly, like a historical game of telephone. And it reminds us that history isn't always black and white. Sometimes it's messy and contradictory.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes it so interesting.
Okay, so we may never know for sure if this letter is real or a clever fake.
Right.
But either way, it's a powerful reminder that history is more than just dates and facts.
Exactly.
It's about stories and interpretations.
Yeah.
And the ways those things change over time.
Well said.
Yeah.
You know, we're all trying to piece together the past,
Right.
understand why things happen the way they did. And sometimes the most intriguing pieces of the puzzle are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers.
Absolutely. So to all our listeners out there,
Yes.
keep digging,
Yes.
keep asking questions, and keep an open mind.
Exactly.
You never know what you might uncover.
And if you have any thoughts about this letter or any other historical mysteries, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Join the conversation on our social media pages and let us know what you think.
That's it for our deep dive into Pilate's letter.
It was a good one.
We hope you enjoyed the journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.